Welcome to today's session, Driving Climate Impact Through Frontier Technology in the Global South. This session marks the launch of our new report called Emerging Trends in Climate Tech Innovation, and it's also part of London Climate Action Week. Should we see if the slides work, Samir? We can go to the next one. My name is Leila Guisi. I'm the Insights and Advocacy Manager for GSMA ClimateTech program, and I'm also based here in London. For those of you who don't know us from before, GSMA is the Association for Mobile Network Operators, and we have offices all around the world, but we are headquartered here in London. The ClimateTech program is part of GSMA's Mobile for Development team. And you can sort of say that we're placed in the intersection of the mobile ecosystem and the development sector. And we work with innovation, and we have a focus on low and middle income countries. We do a lot of things, but our main pillar is our research. But we also work with local market engagement and advocacy by, for example, building partnerships. The ClimateTech program works with bunch of different topics, for example, circular economy, digitally enabled climate finance, natural resource management, and biodiversity. And you can find reports that we have written on these topics on our webpage, which we can link to in the chat later on. Mobile for Development also funds grants, funds entrepreneurs and startups through grants in our innovation fund. And in total, the GSMA Innovation Fund has disbursed 22.6 million so far pounds. Organizations supported by the Innovation Fund has generated more than 653 million in additional investment and impacting 36 million lives. The session today will discuss learnings connected to last year's fund round, focusing on climate resilience and adaptation. So before we go into the discussion, I just want to have a quick look at the agenda for the session. We will first hear some opening remarks from our donors, represented today by Luisa Odell from FCDO and Nadia Dolata from SIDA. My colleague Samir will then go over some of the key findings from the report, which we are launching today. And then we will hear from three of our grantees, Alistair from Comunidad, Aya from BENA, and Mahmoud from JPOM. This will also be followed by a discussion and a Q&A. So just a quick housekeeping. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our website from Monday next week. At the end of the session, we will provide you a link to the report, and you can also use that link to access the recording from next Monday. And for the Q&A at the end of the session, we will have a look at the chat function. So please use that if you have any questions, and we will keep an eye on that throughout the presentation. So without further ado, I will now hand over to our first speaker, which is Luisa Odell from FCDO. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Leila, for the kind introduction, and indeed for inviting me to be part of the event. As Leila just said, my name is Luisa Odell, and I work as an innovation advisor for the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Obviously, I also want to congratulate GSMA for publishing this report, which I believe makes an important contribution to our understanding of the emerging trends in the climate tech field. And it does also demonstrate that there continues to be a huge demand for the kind of funding and assistance that GSMA provides. The GSMA Innovation Fund, whose insights this report presents, is a core part of the wider Mobile for Development program. And we at the FCDO are proud to have been working in partnership with GSMA, with co-funding from SIDA for over a decade now. And our relationship with the GSMA is a really important one for us, for our wider effort to test and scale high potential technology and business models for inclusive socioeconomic and climate impact. So at the UK government, we committed to and become, and we've therefore committed to spend 11.6 billion pounds on climate finance between 2021 and 2026, with at least 1.5 billion pounds earmarked towards adaptation finance. And the latter is because without action to support resilience and adaptation, there's a risk that hard-won development gains are being reversed. So together with the GSMA and with other partners, we have proven that digital and mobile technologies can be a cost-effective and impactful channel for making some of the world's most vulnerable communities more climate resilient. Through our partnership with the GSMA, the FCDO was, for instance, one of the early supporters of the pay-as-you-go solar home system companies, which have now reached millions of people. We jointly supported utility services, which are so crucial for helping cities withstand climate change. And we funded a range of really innovative solutions to empower smallholder farmers to adapt to climate change, amongst many, many other things we've done together. And I was really fortunate to recently spend some time with one of the grantees features in the report we're launching today. So I spent a day with Luisa in Addis Ababa last month, which offers a one-stop digital service for farmers. And this really allowed me to better understand the climate-related challenges some of Ethiopia's poorest farming community face, and to see the great work Luisa has been doing to support their resilience and their livelihoods. And that visit has, to me, really reconfirmed the importance of having in-depth knowledge of the country context, including about cultural factors, which can really make or break any technological solution. So I think the great thing about this report we're launching today, that is as part of broadening our understanding of the trends in the climate innovation field, it also shines an important light on the gender financing gap for digital startups. In doing so, the report reminds us that gender inequalities in access to capital and markets persist. And this is an area of particular importance to the FCDO, as we are committed to putting women and girls at the heart of everything we do. And while the gender financing gap obviously in no way is unique to the GSMA Innovation Fund, these figures are just a stark reminder that we still have quite some way to go. So I want to close by not only thanking GSMA for their continuous partnership, but all the inspirational businesses featured in this report who are doing all the great work on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luisa. And we will go straight over to Nadia from SIDA.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Well, I also want to thank the GSMA for the report launch today, and we're just echoing our proud partnership with GSMA and working together on the Innovation Fund with the FCDO. So my name is Nadia Dolat, and I work as a policy specialist in digital for development at SIDA, which is the Swedish International Development Agency. I'm just going to say a few words, taking a bit of a step back about around the global context and how SIDA is approaching this work more largely. So SIDA's overall mission is to reduce poverty and strengthen human rights. And the areas discussed today, climate change, development financing, and digitalization, are all priorities for Swedish International Development Corporation. So when it comes to digitalization, SIDA's goal is that the integration of digitalization contributes to poverty reduction and to an inclusive, sustainable, and gender equal and rights-based digitalization in our partner countries. And within this, SIDA has a twofold approach. We work to strengthen rights-based digital ecosystem, meaning the kind of basic elements of digitalization, cables, towers, handset skills, funding and innovation, and governance and regulation to ensure that security and human rights on the internet are in place. This very much belongs to the same part and parcel for us. And we also support working with digitalization as a method to accelerate inclusive, sustainable, and rights-based development across every sector. And as you will hear more today, digitalization has a huge potential for social development goals, development and innovation largely. At the same time, there's still a huge gap globally in connectivity and access, with only about 36% of the population in least developed countries who use the internet, and a total of 17% in least developed countries still even live outside of any internet coverage. So many of the same people who are left offline are also the hardest hit by climate change. And climate change disproportionately affects the poorest and most vulnerable populations, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and it's threatening to push as many as 30 million people into poverty by 2030. At the same time, then, it shows that digital technologies has the potential to reduce around 15 to 20% of total emissions. Some of the estimates show that. But to realize this potential, technologies have to be designed and used in a way that also minimizes the negative effects. Of course, there's a risk that the digital transformation contributes to the unsustainable production and consumption that has already been driving climate change. And we must work with these risks also to ensure that this does not become the case. So I would like to make two specific points as to why we're supporting the fund particularly. And this is building on the point around building with the local ecosystem. So SIDA views digital innovation as a part of a digital ecosystem, and we need to support and work with local innovations, and we need the whole forest. Much of the content on the internet comes from digital innovation. It drives services and products, but we want to close the digital divide, yet most of the content on the internet and digital solution is created by and for the global north, and this is still very much the case. And one of the key barriers to using the internet is perceived usefulness. And we don't just want people to be connected for the sake of it. For connectivity to become truly inclusive and universal, we must also ensure that connectivity is relevant and useful. And this is what we're supporting here. And also, as many of the startups that we're supporting can witness to, the work requires to build trust with example, local smallhold farmers to use digital solution, but also what happens when they realize that it's useful for them, they start using it. So by supporting this work, we make sure that the services and products driven by digital technologies are created by and for the same people, both to make it relevant and useful, but also to recognize the creative and innovation potential, as well as the ability of people to solve their own problems. Another point is around financing for development, where there is a huge global shortage to cover the cost of the social development goals. However, there's no shortage of global finances. So what we're trying to do as SIDA is to try and bring in more private funding into the programs that we're doing. And this project with innovation funds is a way to start funding experimentation, testing, and these ecosystems that can build these solutions. But we need to mobilize a whole lot more funding than there is available today, and that the report also points to. I'm realizing that I have run out of time, but I think I've made my key points. And I think that digital innovation can do a lot for climate change, as you will see. But to do this, we need to channel much more funding to support and grow local ecosystems for innovation and learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadia and Luisa. It's always great to get the perspective of the donor, and thank you for sharing why these type of solutions are so important to support. We will now jump to Samir, who is the lead author of this report, and he will take us through the main trends. Samir, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samir, and I'm the Climate Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Manager at GSMA, and one of the authors of our new report, which we are launching today. So I'm here to share some of the key findings from the report, and a quick reminder, as Leila said, that link to the report will be available at the end of the webinar. So let me first set the context by telling you a bit about the fund and the report. So like Nadia was mentioning, climate change is having severe impacts across the globe, especially in low and middle income countries. Research from the GSMA ClimateTech program shows that mobile and digital technology is uniquely placed to provide and enable tools that help communities not only survive climate shocks, but thrive in spite of them. So in 2021, GSMA, with the support of FCDO and CEDA, announced the launch of the GSMA Innovation Fund for Climate Resilience and Adaptation. The objective of the fund is to help accelerate the testing and piloting of digital innovations that enable the world's most vulnerable populations to adapt to, anticipate, and absorb the negative impacts of climate change. And from more than 500 applications across 70 countries, 12 successful organizations were selected to receive grant funding and technical assistance by GSMA, and 3 of them are here today with us to tell us what they do. So the report Emerging Trends in Climate Tech Innovation analyzes trends and solutions pitched by applicants for the fund. And now on to some of the key trends that we discovered. So firstly, we found that there was high representation of locally led innovation, particularly from Africa. 90% of solutions were designed and delivered locally, and the fund encouraged applications from local entrepreneurs. So this is a positive trend, as locally led adaptations solutions in which communities are closely involved in designing, planning, implementing, and decision-making are critical to the sustainability and effectiveness of these solutions. Now, although the fund was open to applicants from Africa, Asia Pacific, and the Caribbean, 78% of projects were based in Africa and 19% were based in Asia. There were far fewer applications from small island states or Latin America, which was a shame as these geographies are also particularly vulnerable to the negative impacts of climate change. Another key trend that we noticed was that whilst we have come a long way in recognizing climate change as an urgent issue, the language surrounding climate action is not understood well, particularly the nuances around climate resilience. We looked at how applicants reported their project could help build climate resilience and compared this to our own evaluation of how their project might do this. We noticed that applicants often misjudged or over-reported the capacity of their project to strengthen climate resilience. For example, 52% of applicants stated that their project aimed to improve anticipatory capacities, that is to help individuals, communities, or institutions to plan and prepare for climate threats. However, GSMA's evaluation revealed that only 14% specifically targeted capacity building in this area. There is a need for better understanding of climate concepts among digital innovators and other stakeholders. There was confusion around what climate resilience was and how this was different to climate change mitigation and the linkages between climate resilience and the environment, ecosystem, or biodiversity. Another key finding was that agricultural solutions dominated the pool of applications, with 46% of applications focusing on this sector alone, particularly in North, East, and West Africa, as well as South Asia. So this ranged from projects that offered climate-smart agricultural services to weather forecasting or credit and insurance to help absorb the risks of climate shocks and stresses. Because of this, it's no surprise that smallholder farmers were the most commonly targeted user group. This highlights a growing awareness of the linkages and dependencies between agriculture and climate change. However, it also suggests there is scope for additional support and testing for other sectors that can build climate resilience, mitigate climate change, or safeguard natural resources and the environment in areas where climate vulnerable communities exist. We also looked at the trends in the technologies that were being used in solutions for climate action. So most of the applicants plan to use a combination of innovative technologies as part of their projects. The most popular solutions were more traditional ones, such as mobile apps, where 61% of applicants were proposing use of mobile applications, and 52% were proposing the use of mobile money. The use of emerging technologies, such as blockchain, big data analytics, and AI, were proposed by less than a third of applicants. And regionally, more projects in Asia used front-end technology, while there was greater interest in the use of mobile money in Africa. As Nadia and Luisa mentioned, women and girls are disproportionately impacted by climate change due to existing socioeconomic inequalities. So we were keen to see how and if startups address this. It is essential that mobile and digital technological solutions consider the needs of women and design solutions that are gender sensitive or transformative. We analyzed the gender balance of both of the users of the tech solution and the organizations designing them. And it was encouraging to see that 42% of all projects had women as the primary target user. However, we recognize that more female innovators are needed who can lead the design and implementation of solutions that are specifically targeting women. We noted that across all of the leadership roles within startups who pitched to us, less than 30% of those were occupied by women. And then finally, when it comes to the level at which projects were aiming to build resilience, most solutions sought to strengthen climate resilience at an individual level or household level, rather than building community, city, or institutional resilience. Very few startups proposed solutions targeting governments and working on enabling environments. Those that did highlighted challenges in generating revenue through this approach, and participation of different stakeholders, including local and national authorities, is critical to addressing climate resilience and mitigation at scale. However, the willingness and capacity to engage can vary significantly depending on sector, maturity of startup, and the government entity involved. And this all points to a need for more evidence on successful business models where startups and larger institutions can work together effectively. So that is all from me, and a reminder that a link to the report will be shared at the end of the session so you can read more of the trends in more detail. Back to you, Leila.
Thank you so much, Samir. We will now hear from some of the successful applicants in this round and hear firsthand from their solution and what problem they are solving. And first up, I believe, if you can change the slides, Samir, I believe it's Mahmoud from JPalm. So over to you.
My name is Mahmoud Johnson from JPalm, Liberia. And my company is JPalm, Liberia. And we focus on cultivating and promoting indigenous wild palm in Liberia. Next slide, please. So we all know that palm oil is the most widely used vegetable oil in the world. It's in 50% of grocery products on average. However, there's a serious environmental problem with palm oil concerning deforestation, clearing out the rainforest to make way for palm plantations. The proposed solutions to this deforestation crisis has ranged from boycott campaigns against palm oil to creating synthetic alternatives. But there's a third solution that is not currently involved or included in the high-level conversations around palm oil, and that's what we're focusing on at JPalm. So next slide. You see, palm oil is indigenous to West Africa. It grows naturally in the region without anyone having to plant, especially for the Dura variety. This is the wild palm, and it's actually this variety that was used and modified to create the Tenera variety. That's what is grown in Southeast Asia and grown on these industrial estates. But we still have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of wild palm trees growing naturally in the wild. And cultivation and production of wild palm actually negates the need for deforestation because this is a wild tree crop. And so no one is actively cutting down any rainforest to plant wild palm. It already grows. It's been growing in natural environment in perfect harmony with the environment. Additionally, from a livelihoods perspective, wild palm production improves the lives of smallholder farmers directly because the lands are owned by the people, and anyone who harvests the palm gets to trade the oils. Unfortunately, smallholder farmers, even though they are making what is arguably the most organic palm oil in the world, and also what is the most sustainable palm oil, they continue to live in poverty. As you can see in the middle picture on this slide, the traditional way of making palm oil involves them manually squeezing out the palm oil. This process is very labor intensive and inefficient. It results in about 50% post-harvest loss. And because of bottlenecks in the production process, the farmers end up not harvesting about 35% of the wild palm fruit. And so J-Palm's model basically is to set up partnerships with these communities where we construct mini palm oil processing mills. These are zero carbon mills. They increase production yields by about 53%, reduce production time by 65%, and reduce water usage by 70%. So very sustainable and also economically efficient to the farmers. Next slide. And as Samir said earlier, technology has been a huge part of our supply chain. If you look at the palm oil value chain, the palm oil supply chain, within the context of the climate crisis and deforestation, a huge part of the work is actually in traceability, in actually proving where the oils are being sourced from. And this is important on several fronts. It is important because it's important for certification purposes. It's also important because we're trying to create a new standard in palm oil. I think most times consumers buy products that have one word. Maybe it will be fair trade, organic, or whatever the word is, but there's no additional data of what exactly that means. What we're trying to do is to use the blockchain technology to generate data that we can now put into the hands of consumers. So imagine, for example, that you go into a store and you buy a product that uses these oils, and you scan a QR code that takes you to a website where you can be able to see exactly where the oils are sourced from. So that's where the mapping comes in. So we know exactly that these are wild tree crops as opposed to being grown on a plantation. You can also see which communities they were sourced from, what farmers contributed to that particular batch, and also get to learn more about the stories of these farmers. That's what the blockchain technology is enabling us to do over time as we generate enough data to be able to do that. And we believe that this is an important point of differentiation for consumers who are interested not just in buying products, but also in making sure that they are buying products more responsibly so they can have more information as a basis to make this decision. Finally, next slide. We are also integrating mobile money. So we're going to be working on a pilot project to pay the smallholder farmers directly using mobile money. And this, again, is another layer of transparency in the supply chain so that we can be able to fully trace not just the source and the movements of the oils, but also trace the money that's going back and forth with farmers so that everything is 100% digital and we can be able to quantify the impact on the farmers. Because from our perspective, in Liberia, as it is in most West African countries, most of the remaining forest stock is in very rural areas where most of the residents are very low income people. And they are the ones that we are placing this huge responsibility on to protect the forest, to maintain the forest. But we cannot really achieve that if there's not a livelihoods component to it. And so by taking a wild tree crop like palm oil and making it very profitable and very efficient to extract, the smallholder farmers and the residents of their communities have an incentive to protect it and to make sure that they are conducting operations in ways that are in alignment with principles of conservation and sustainability. And so that's the reason why the economic component is extremely important to tell the story about how this palm oil is different and to ensure that the prices that the farmers reflect for the produce reflect the value that they're offering us as a society as far as conservation and sustainability. So I'll stop here and I think we can discuss more during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud. That is a really interesting solution that you have. In the interest of time, I will jump straight to Aya from Egypt and Bena.
Thank you, Leila. So to quickly introduce myself, I'm Aya Tariq Hilmi, co-founder and managing director of Benet Foundation for Sustainable Development, an Egyptian NGO fostering innovation for sustainability with a mission of empowering rural communities through knowledge-based, youth-led participatory projects in the MENA region. I'm also a member of the Global Network of Civil Society for Disaster Risk Reduction and a member of the Environment Committee at the Egyptian National Council for Women. Next slide, please. Climate change is not a future threat. It is a harsh reality to which communities all over the world are forced to adapt. We are now witnessing its impacts on the global water situation, particularly in the dry, arid MENA region. We in Egypt are suffering from escalating water shortages that are exacerbated by drought and heat waves, and affecting water resource availability and distribution between sectors, particularly the agricultural sector. In this context, the resilience of rural communities is under threat since they are dependent on agriculture as their main source of livelihood. Additionally, communities without access to improved sanitation are even more impacted with the situation because the high water stress makes them more tolerant regarding the quality of the water they consume, which in many cases gets contaminated with their domestic wastewater, putting human health and livelihood in danger. Next slide, please. With the belief that every water drop counts, the Egyptian government is expanding its wastewater treatment and reuse agenda to provide an alternative for the scarce fresh water while decreasing the environmental degradation. However, there remain over 40 million Egyptians without access to improved sanitation, living in 35,000 remote rural communities called the Izbas, who are not feasibly connected to the government's large-scale treatment facilities. Small-scale decentralized systems can be a great solution for these people. Nonetheless, the large number of units that are located in remote locations pose an operations and monitoring challenge. In addition, the farmers often use the same amount of fertilizers on the treated water despite its high nutrient content, which increases the risk of soil chemical contamination. Next slide. The Digital Water and Sanitation Solutions project, it solves these issues by providing smart, decentralized wastewater treatment and reuse units that use IoT technology to remotely monitor the units. I think we skipped a slide. It uses IoT technology to remotely monitor the units, helping ensure the treated water quality and provide access to quality sanitation services with affordable costs. The technology behind our solution is quite simple. We install sensors to monitor the water treatment units. They measure MPK levels, water quality parameters, and water flow. The sensors connect to a gateway that sends real-time data to the cloud. Over the cloud, the data is processed and sent to an online dashboard that we can access at any time for real-time monitoring of the units. And if the treated water quality is below the standards or the electricity is down or for any reason the unit stops working, we receive email and SMS notifications, helping reduce downtime and ensure access to safe water resources. NPK data is also sent to the mobile app. Farmers use this data to understand the concentration of nutrients in the treated water. This helps them optimize their fertilizer use and prevent excessive use of chemical fertilizers that contaminate soil and water. Farmers also have the option to register their farms and their crops on our app. If they do so, they receive customized information telling them how to use the treated water based on their location, soil type, and crop cycle. Now, mind you, we are talking about people at the bottom of the wealth pyramid. So naturally, they cannot pay the capital cost of an infrastructure project upfront. But surprisingly, they pay 27 times more than those in urban areas connected to the government sanitation services just to get rid of their wastewater. So from their cost savings, they are able to pay back the cost of the system through monthly subscriptions using mobile money in a simple utility model in 3 to 5 years. From this mark on, the unit generates steady monthly profits. As we all know, digital innovation often outpaces existing policies and regulations. To help bridges, we at Benet joined the Community Partnership Task Force at the Ministry of Housing, Utilities, where we are piloting this innovative technical and financial model with the holding company for water and wastewater in order to help institutionalize the legal framework and develop the policies of smart decentralized wastewater treatment in Egypt to further scale the solution. With our current trajectory and the support of the GSMA Innovation Fund, SIDA, and FCDO, we are expecting to serve more than 7 ISBAs by the end of 2023. But more importantly, we will have de-risked our technology and end-user financing model. With a total addressable market of over 40 million Egyptians in Egypt alone, we still have a long way to go and a lot of strategic partnerships to make to help bridge the financial and technological barriers facing the bottom of the pyramid communities. Thank you. Over to you, Leila.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aya. And now straight over to Philippines and Alistair from Comunidad.
Hi, everyone. I'll quickly introduce myself. I am Alistair from Comunidad. So Comunidad is a climate data and analytics software company that focuses on climate resilience and sustainability. So as a startup, we provide comprehensive and easy to use decision support tools to monitor and anticipate different kinds of hazards and other natural disasters. So most of our operations is based in the Philippines, and we have our corporate office also in Singapore. Next slide. So before I quickly discuss our product, so I'll just quickly discuss a brief context as to what problem are we trying to solve. So we all know that globally, half of the world doesn't really have access to comprehensive early warning systems, and even fewer have links to their early warning system, to their comprehensive plans. So in the Philippines, the context is we actually lack access to local data and software to simplify and localize and automate the disaster risk reduction and management process. And the second would be the high cost of purchase and maintenance of equipment and multiple systems, which leads to long development time frames. So for Comunidad, we believe that the solution is the use of climate data and analytics, and our SaaS approach was able to develop the Climate Operations Center, which is being used to locally monitor, anticipate storms, heat waves, floods, droughts, and other natural disasters. So compared to traditional approach wherein you put sensors, you model the observations coming from different data sets, now just by simply having a software license, everyone can now afford to have their own climate risk and early warning system without spending millions of dollars and wait for years to implement. Next slide. So I'll start first with some standard features of our product. So we put emphasis on the visualizations or easy to use dashboards. So as you can see in your left, we develop a threat monitor dashboard. That's a dashboard to view real-time and forecast analysis on a national and local level in a simple integrated interface. So the monitoring and analysis of multiple locations or clusters are translated into simple maps, tables, graphs, and threat matrix formats. So the advantage of having a threat monitor dashboard is simply by having one look, or you already have like a big picture glance of the scenario in terms of different parameters in your specific city or even at the national level. So this is more of like a big picture in terms of it gives you the general situation of your specific locality in terms of local governments, or if you're a company, all your assets. The next would be the site risk analysis dashboard. So this is a dashboard to view detailed real time, which is happening now, and forecast, which is potentially happening in the next 6 hours or the next 12 or 24 hours. Analysis of a specific GPS location. Now, to address the need for localization of data, we addressed the analytics. We provided analytics in a specific GPS location. So just by having our coordinates, we are able to provide analytics on a 3 kilometer to 5 kilometer radius. So it's hyper local. It's very helpful if you're talking about impact-based multi-hazard risk assessment. So it goes to the village level in terms of application. Next slide. So those were some of the visualizations I presented earlier, and we also have developed recent visualizations depending on the needs. So we have developed like evacuation dashboards, also physical risk assessments and everything. So I'll be quick with this. The next would be providing early warning alerts. So for those areas that doesn't have connectivity, we provide SMS alerts, and then the popular alerts platforms here in the Philippines are Viber, Telegram, WhatsApp. So these are very practical tools to let them know what is happening, to provide localized monitoring and alerts based on program thresholds. So the thresholds are actually specific to the community. So for example, in terms of amount of rainfall for flooded areas, we're able to adjust it based on the context. So those are just some quick examples. And I'll move forward to automated reports. So this is more of like the operational level in terms of managing disasters. So just to share an example in the Philippines, whenever there's a low pressure area or a severe weather occurrence that might be able to provide negative impact to a certain city or municipality, usually the local government council convenes to create this report. So they just start providing analysis, and then they determine where the areas will be have potential threats or impacts. But at Comunidad, because of our IT and data analytics capacity, we are able to automate this for them. So now we were able to convert dashboards in a form of automated reports, and these are being sent on a regular basis depending on their needs. So whenever there's for example, a low pressure area, the reports are already automatic. So they just need to discuss their call to action or next steps, because the manual work has already been done. So this is more of the advantages on an operational side. Next slide, please. So those are just some of our standard features. So we're able to customize also different kinds of services. And recently we have developed our sustainability suite for sustainability reporting, mobile versions of what I just presented, just for easy access through mobile apps, hazard maps, and so on. So, so this is our value at Comunidad. We focus on the impact and an end user approach. So we do not intend to replace the National Weather Service. So we supplement them because in reality, there are gaps, and we make by adding local intelligence, applying modern data techniques, and building tailored fit insights suited to a specific location, community, or business, we're able to make it more powerful. So the first is we are able to unify data, because in the Philippines, and especially perhaps for the countries that doesn't really have adequate early warning systems, the data is scattered, and we cannot really do anything with data that is everywhere. It's not being efficiently processed. So we're able to unify it based on government data, global data sets, our own model data. And this is the most important for us. In order to save lives, we really need to localize data. People need to understand what these data sets mean, not on a science understanding, but more on the practical means for safety. And through our visualizations, alerts, and reports, we're able to enhance local risk communications. So that ends my quick overview. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alistair. I am very aware of our time. Hopefully we will have time for 1 or 2 questions. If you want to pop them into the chat, then please do so. If we don't have time to answer them during this session, we will get back to you afterwards. But Alistair, staying with you for a little bit, could you also maybe describe how your solution is impacting the individual?
Oh, yeah. So as you noticed, our solution is more targeted to institutional capacities. So our end users are mostly government companies. So it's mostly a B2B approach, right? So I think for us, we believe that, especially here in our context in the Philippines, that's the first step, because Of course, for these early warnings to be served properly, to be disseminated, it needs accountability, and we need an organized institution for that, which is definitely the local government. And since they are the frontliners for this service, the local disaster risk reduction management agencies, if their capacities are increased, we believe that the constituents within a certain community will also be increased. Rather than, I mean, just for our model, right? If we approach it on a consumer basis, there might be no accountability, when we provide alerts, but that's a different discussion probably. But we believe if we capacitate local governments, we're able to contribute to early warnings for all. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I want to jump over to Mahmoud, and because of the dependency of agroforestry forestry in rural communities in Liberia, I want to ask you also the same question. If you can talk a bit more about how your solution is impacting the lives of the farmers who are using it.
Absolutely. Our core thesis is that we have this large forest stock. In fact, Liberia has the largest share of the remaining Upper Guinea forest. It's a lot of the forest remain untouched. Most of the people who live in those areas are living in poverty, and the predominant issue for them is how do they live themselves out of poverty. So we have tensions, concerning maintaining the forest as it is versus opening it up for large-scale commercial agriculture as a path for livelihoods development for these communities. And so what we are trying to do is to monetize what's already there so that there's no need for them to open it up to cut down the trees or logging or whatever it is to earn income. And wild palm, if you look at the global palm oil industry, palm oil, as we all know, is as I said earlier, is very widely used. But we are seeing that brands and also consumers are willing to pay more for more sustainable ingredients in their products. The challenge is that is an issue of market access. It's also an issue of farmers having access to the right technology to be able to produce at the standards that can enable them to tap into these international markets. And so the impact on the farmer is several-fold. One is them having access to tools that enable them to produce much faster and increase their volumes. Number two is and we just got organic certification. We also got regenerative organic certification. Those are two hugely important certifications that enable us to now begin to export to larger markets in the US and EU. The third component of this would be telling the story, right? Because most people feel very helpless about palm oil situation, and people are now starting to boycott palm oil. So by telling the story about this more hopeful kind of palm oil and actually pricing the climate component into it so that when people are buying things, they're not just buying oil for the functionality, they're also buying because they are in a way paying for the environmental protections that these communities are offering by keeping the wild palms and keeping the forest intact. I think by doing this, it increases the revenue that the farmers earn, which they know that they will only continue to earn that revenue once they maintain the forest as it is and not opening it up for harmful agricultural practices. So the impact on the farmer, part of this theoretical, part of this is actual, because the machines that we introduced help to increase their yields by 53%. It reduces processing time by 65% and reduces water usage by 70%. All of these combined, we have seen, because now it just takes a much shorter time for them to produce. So they're harvesting more, they're producing more. They'll be able to increase their income by about threefold, but that still is not enough because these are people in extreme poverty. And so by tapping into these international markets, and I'll give you an example. I know that we don't have much time, but I'll give you an example. A ton of wild palm in Liberia is about $1,000. There's a synthetic palm oil that's now being sold as an alternative to palm oil. A ton of that, right? If it is packaged as a consumer product, is sold at $375,000. right? So imagine that smallholder farmers who are producing this natural, sustainable palm oil. Imagine if they had access to that market. What would be the impact on these communities and forests? So that's where we are going, right? Is number one is just mechanically increasing yields and increasing income to farmers. But how do we tap into those large international markets, for the most sustainable palm oil in the world, and ensure that farmers are being paid fairly for what they're producing?
That's fantastic. Thank you. Now, Aya, over to you. We know that the agricultural sector consumes about 86% of Egypt's water resources. And your solution works with converting wastewater into irrigation water using IoT technology. In your experience, how open are the farmers that are using them to use this advanced IoT technology in their day-to-day activities?
Okay. So engaging with farmers, understanding their specific needs and concerns, and tailoring the IoT solutions to address their unique circumstances are key factors in driving adoption. Even though agriculture consumes a large portion of Egypt's water resources, Egypt is still a water-scarce country, and many farmers do not have access to clean water for irrigation in drought periods. So they turn to non-conventional resources to fill this gap, including wastewater, which they know, I'm talking about untreated water here, negatively affects their soil quality, crop yield, and health. Since we respond to this direct need, we almost always guarantee that users will use our water. So it is an issue of optimizing the usage modality. Yet, the openness of farmers to advanced technology can vary widely among individuals and communities depending on several factors. The first of them is awareness, education, support, and training. So providing education and information about the potential advantages, like our colleagues were mentioning earlier, the usefulness of the technology in agriculture can help farmers see the value and be more receptive to its implementation. Farmers are more open to adopting IoT technology if they receive adequate support and training on how to use the technology effectively. So offering awareness campaigns, digital literacy programs, technical assistance, and offline training programs, especially at the launch of the technology, and ongoing support can help farmers overcome the initial challenges or barriers they encounter while adopting the IoT solutions. So it's not only a matter of providing the technology, it has to come as a complete package that includes awareness trainings, etc. And like we said, demonstrating benefits and success stories. So farmers are more likely to adopt the advanced technology if they can see the tangible benefits and positive outcomes. Conducting demos and pilots and sharing case studies that demonstrate how the same technology improved water efficiency and crop yield and resilience to climate change in their location or in other locations can inspire the farmers and create a favorable perception of the technology, and can be instrumental in gaining the farmers' trust and confidence. Similarly, peer influence and networking. So the influence of peers and the social networks within the farming community can impact the openness of the farmers to adopting the technologies. They often, the farmers rely on experiences and recommendations of their peers. So creating opportunities for knowledge sharing, farmer-to-farmer exchanges, and peer learning platforms can facilitate the spread of information and encourage the adoption. And finally, last but not least, the affordability and access. Access to the technology and the affordability of its implementation can influence definitely their openness. So if the cost of the IoT devices, sensors, infrastructure is prohibitively high, it will deter the widespread adoption, particularly among the small-scale farmers who have limited resources. So this is why end-user financing always comes in hand-to-hand with the technology. So yeah, these are some of the factors that definitely influence them.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much. It seems we are running out of time, and I can't see any questions in the chat. So I think we need to wrap up here. We will post, if I can ask Domi or Samir to link our webpage in the chat, we can and share actually the report there. I want to end by saying a huge thank you to everyone who has dialed in for the session, and to all the panelists for taking the time to speak with us today. And if anyone would like to discuss this topic further, please do reach out. I can also pop my email into the chat so that we can discuss this at another time. We will also write more on this as we follow the journey of all our grantees. So we will keep sharing learnings from their experiences of using digital innovation for climate action. So keep an eye out on our webpage as well. I'd also like to say a big thank you to our donors, CEDA and FCDO, because of course, without them, this would not be possible. And a special thank you also to London Climate Action Week for including us in your program. So the report is out now and available to download through the website. And you can use the link and this QR code to access it. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.